The night air along Fifth Avenue was sharper than usual, the kind that cut straight through a man's coat, no matter how expensive it was. Grayson Holt barely noticed. His breath fogged in front of him as he stepped out of the emergency response unit, adjusting his reflective vest and rubbing his palms together to fight the cold. Billionaire or not, he insisted on volunteering for overnight medical rotations twice a month. It was the only place he felt human, far from boardrooms, investors, and the spotless glass tower that carried his name. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the sound that ripped through the night. A car screeched, followed by a sickening thud. People gasped. A stroller tipped over on the crosswalk. Grayson sprinted before his mind even caught up, his boots pounding the pavement as adrenaline overpowered everything else. "Male EMT approaching," he shouted, dropping to his knees beside the tiny figure on the asphalt. A little girl, no older than 2, blonde curls tangled around her cheeks, a soft pink sweater torn at the shoulder. Her breathing was shallow, fading, the way he'd seen too many times in the field. But something about this child made his hands tremble in a way that didn't feel strictly medical. "Stay with me, sweetheart," he whispered, checking her pulse. A paramedic brought the medical bag, but Grayson's eyes were locked on the small bracelet around the child's wrist. Faded plastic, cracked at the edges, but clear enough to read the name. Lily Blake. His stomach dropped. Blake. A name he hadn't spoken out loud in 3 years. A name that still lived like a shard of glass under his ribs. He pushed the thought away. Coincidence. New York was full of Blakes. The child whimpered. Grayson leaned closer and froze. Her eyes fluttered open for a second. Hazel brown. The exact same shade that had once looked at him across a wedding aisle, across a pillow at sunrise, across a lawyer's table on the worst day of his life. No, it couldn't be. "Get her stabilized," he ordered, voice suddenly strained. "We need the ambulance now." The assistant nodded, but Grayson was no longer hearing anything. His hands moved automatically, practiced from years of training, but something dark and electric crawled up his spine. A woman came running through the chaos, breathless, terrified, clutching the edge of her coat as though it were the only thing keeping her standing. Grayson heard her voice before he saw her face. "Please, my baby Lily!" He turned, and his entire world slammed to a stop. Savannah Blake stood under the streetlight, eyes wide with horror, hair damp from the cold wind. The woman he once loved. The woman he lost. The woman who vanished from his life 3 years ago without a trace. Pregnant. She stared at him, frozen. He stared back at her, then slowly down at the little girl in his arms, with his eyes. And in that instant, Grayson understood the truth that shattered everything he thought he knew. She hadn't just vanished. She'd taken his daughter. Savannah's breath came in sharp, broken bursts as she reached the stretcher. For a moment, she didn't even seem to see him, just her daughter. Her trembling hands hovered over Lily's small body, afraid to touch, afraid to make it worse. The fear in her eyes wasn't the kind that came from tonight alone. It was old fear, worn-in fear, the kind a person carried for years. Is she breathing?" Savannah choked out. Grayson swallowed hard. He had treated hundreds of children in crisis, but he had never struggled to form words like this. "She's fighting," he said softly. "We're doing everything we can." Savannah finally looked up at him. It hit them both like a collision. 3 years of silence. 3 years of questions. 3 years of wounds neither of them had ever healed from. The city roared around them, sirens, traffic, shouting, but the world between them went painfully, dangerously still. "You!" Savannah whispered, her voice cracking. Why are you here?" "I'm on duty," Grayson managed. "Savannah, why didn't you ever—" "Not now." Her tone snapped like ice. She turned back to Lily, brushing a curl from the girl's forehead. Her hands shook so badly she had to steady her wrist against the stretcher rail. Grayson's chest tightened. She looked exhausted, thinner, paler. Not the bright woman he remembered. Something, or someone, had hollowed her out. The ambulance doors opened. "Load her!" the medic barked. Savannah tried to climb in, but her knee buckled. Grayson caught her by the elbows before she hit the pavement. The contact jolted them both. "Don't touch me," she whispered, not angry, but wounded. He let go instantly. But the moment her weight left his hands, something inside him collapsed too. The medic helped Savannah climb inside. Grayson started to step back. Protocol said he couldn't ride with them, but then Lily's monitor beeped irregularly. Savannah gasped. "Oh God, Lily, baby, stay with me." Grayson didn't even think. "Move," he ordered the medic, climbing in behind them. "I'm stabilizing her airway." Savannah stared at him in disbelief as he knelt beside her daughter, hands steady, voice firm. The controlled version of him, the CEO who commanded boardrooms, was gone. This man was raw, desperate, terrified of losing a child he'd only just realized might be his. She looked at him as if trying to read a truth she wasn't ready to face. "Savannah," he said quietly, once Lily's vitals steadied. "She has my eyes." Her breath hitched violently. "No," she whispered. "Don't you dare. Don't start this now." He froze. "Savannah, is she mine?" Tears welled in her eyes. Not soft tears, but the kind a person fights with every muscle of their body. "I can't do this with you," she whispered. "Not tonight. Not ever." Before he could answer, Lily's heart monitor spiked, filling the small ambulance with sharp beeping that made Savannah scream. And in that moment of chaos, the medic shouted the words that would change everything again. "We're losing her. Prepare for full intervention." The ambulance doors slammed behind them as they burst into the emergency bay, the fluorescent lights slicing across the chaos like blades. Nurses rushed forward, unlocking the stretcher and pulling Lily toward the pediatric trauma room. Savannah stumbled after them, half running, half sobbing, her fingers clutching the air as if she could pull her daughter back into her arms by sheer force of will. Grayson kept pace beside her, every muscle tight, every breath uneven. He had been in trauma rooms more times than he could count, but never with someone who might share his blood. Never with a child whose fragile heartbeat echoed like a hammer inside his skull. Inside the trauma room, alarms sounded in rapid succession. BP dropping, oxygen unstable, heart rhythm irregular. Savannah pressed a hand over her mouth, shaking violently. The doctor tried to guide her back, but she refused. "I'm not leaving her," she whispered, voice raw. "Not again." Grayson stepped between Savannah and the chaos, not to block her view, but to steady her, to absorb her trembling through his own body. Her shoulder brushed his chest, and something inside him cracked open. He remembered her softness, her warmth, the way she used to lean into him before the world turned cruel. Then he remembered the day she disappeared. No note. No call. Just the echoing click of a door shutting behind her, along with the child he never knew existed. A nurse barked, "We need to intubate." Savannah flinched. "Oh God, please don't let her die. Please." Grayson didn't think. He wrapped his arms around her, grounding her against the tidal wave of fear. She stiffened at first, as if terrified to accept comfort from the man she once trusted, but her body eventually sagged, too exhausted to fight. His voice was low against her hair. "Savannah, look at me." She lifted her face, streaked with tears. "I'm here," he said. "I'm not walking away. Not this time. Not ever." Her breath shattered. "You can't promise that." "I just did." Before she could respond, the lead doctor called out, "Pulse stabilizing." The room exhaled at once, but relief lasted only seconds. Because as the doctor shifted Lily's tiny body, a folded piece of laminated hospital paperwork slipped from under the child's sweater, scuffed, faded, nearly worn through. Grayson picked it up carefully, confused. It wasn't a medical form, it was a custody document. His name was blacked out, Savannah's name still visible, and an unfamiliar signature at the bottom, Brielle Sutton. Grayson's blood ran ice cold. "Savannah, what is this?" he whispered. She froze, color draining from her face. "Where did you get that?" "It was on Lily." His voice darkened. "Why is Brielle's signature on a custody agreement for your daughter?" Savannah looked at the paper as if it were a loaded weapon aimed at her chest. "That's not a custody agreement," she said shakily. "At least, that's not what she told me I was signing." Grayson's pulse thundered. He demanded. "Savannah, what did Brielle make you sign?" Savannah's lips parted, but the doctor interrupted, stepping toward them with a grave expression. "Mr. Holt, Ms. Blake, we need to talk about Lily, immediately." And the look in his eyes said the news would break them both before the night was over. Savannah's knees nearly gave out as the doctor guided them into a private consultation room, a cold, windowless box with humming fluorescent lights and a lingering smell of disinfectant. The kind of room where people's lives were split into before and after. She clutched the edge of the metal table, fighting the dizziness that threatened to swallow her whole. Grayson remained beside her, rigid, silent, his jaw clenched tight. His eyes never once left the doctor's face. The doctor folded his hands. "Lily is stable for the moment," he began, "but the next few hours will be critical." Savannah's body jerked as if someone had struck her. "Critical how?" Her injuries suggest this wasn't just a collision. The angle of impact, the bruising pattern. He paused. "It looks intentional." Savannah's stomach twisted violently. "Intentional? Someone hit her on purpose?" "It's a possibility we can't ignore." Grayson stiffened. Something sharp and dangerous flickered in his eyes. Who would target a 2-year-old? The doctor hesitated, then slid a thin medical file across the table. "There's something else you need to see." Savannah opened it with trembling fingers, then froze. Inside were pages from Lily's past medical visits, except they weren't the originals. Dates were altered, signatures mismatched, information crossed out and rewritten. Someone had been tampering with her daughter's medical records. "No," Savannah whispered. "No, this can't be happening." Grayson leaned close, scanning the documents. "These edits, they went through Holt BioCare's internal system." His voice dropped. "These were changed from inside my company." Savannah's head snapped up. "Are you accusing me?" "No," he cut in quickly. "Savannah, I'm accusing Brielle." The room fell silent. The doctor cleared his throat. "Whoever modified these files did so with high-level access, and if these changes hadn't been discovered..." He inhaled slowly. "Your daughter might have been treated incorrectly tonight." Savannah pressed both hands over her mouth as her vision blurred. "Oh my God!" Grayson moved instinctively toward her, but she stepped back, shaking. "How long?" she whispered. "How long has this been happening behind my back? How long has someone been playing with my child's life?" Her voice cracked into something that made the doctor look away. Grayson's tone softened. "Savannah, tell me the truth. What did Brielle make you sign before you disappeared? That paper in the trauma room wasn't a custody form." Savannah squeezed her eyes shut. "She told me. It was paperwork needed for me to get emergency support. I just left the penthouse. I had nowhere to go. I was scared, exhausted, pregnant." Her breath hitched. "She said it was temporary protection, that you agreed to it." Grayson's face drained of color. "Savannah, I never agreed to anything. I never even saw those documents." She looked at him, devastated. "I think," he continued carefully, "Brielle forged my authorization." Savannah staggered back into the chair. "Why? Why would she do that to me? To Lily?" "She wanted control," Grayson murmured. "Over me, over the company, and over anyone who could expose her." Savannah's voice trembled. "So you're saying this, all of this, wasn't just sabotage?" Grayson met her eyes, voice low, deadly calm. "It was a setup, Savannah, from the very beginning." The door burst open. A nurse appeared, breathless. Ms. Blake! Mr. Holt! Something's happening with Lily. You need to come. Now! Savannah's scream echoed before her feet even touched the floor. Savannah sprinted down the hallway, her boots slapping against the linoleum floor, each step echoing like a countdown she couldn't outrun. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Grayson was right beside her, matching her speed, though every few seconds he glanced over, as if terrified she might collapse. When they reached the pediatric trauma unit, nurses swarmed Lily's room. The curtain was half drawn, monitors screeching in panicked rhythms. Savannah pushed past the staff, her hand trembling as she grabbed the curtain and yanked it open. Lily's tiny body lay limp on the hospital bed, a cluster of wires and tubes surrounding her like a mechanical cage. Her chest rose only slightly with each struggling breath. Savannah's knees buckled. No, baby, Mommy's here, she whispered, gripping the side rail until her knuckles turned white. The head nurse stepped forward. Ms. Blake, Lily's oxygen levels dropped again. We're preparing her for more aggressive intervention. Savannah shook her head in frantic denial. She's only 2. She hates needles. She cries when I cut her nails. She can't handle. Her voice cracked and dissolved into silent sobs. Grayson reached for her shoulder, but she flinched away, pressing a hand to her forehead, as if trying to hold herself together by sheer force. I can't lose her, she whispered. I already lost everything else. That sentence hit Grayson harder than any blow to the body ever could. He moved closer anyway. Savannah, you are not losing her. I won't let that happen. You don't get to say that, she snapped, spinning toward him with wild, grief-stricken eyes. You weren't there when she had her first fever. You weren't there when the landlord shut the heat off in winter, and I had to wrap her in 3 blankets. You weren't there when she cried for hours, and I didn't know what was wrong because I had no one to call. Her voice broke. You don't get to be the hero now. The room froze. Grayson didn't speak for a moment. He simply looked at her, not offended, not angry, just shattered. I know, he finally said. I know I failed you. I know I wasn't there. But I'm here now, Savannah, and I'm not leaving. Savannah covered her face, shoulders shaking. Every piece of her looked as if it had been scraped raw. A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. We have reviewed the scans, he said tightly. Lily's internal injuries are inconsistent with a simple traffic collision. Savannah's head snapped up. Meaning what? Meaning we suspect she was struck by a vehicle that accelerated, not braked. A cold horror crawled across the room. Grayson's expression turned lethal. Someone tried to kill her! Savannah's knees nearly gave out. But why? Who would hurt a child? The doctor hesitated, then asked a question that turned Savannah's blood to ice. Ms. Blake, has anyone threatened you recently? Savannah froze. Because one name slammed into her mind so violently, she nearly said it out loud. Brielle. Before she could respond, a security guard rushed in. Mr. Holt, there's a situation in the lobby. A woman is demanding to see you, says it's urgent. Savannah's breath caught. The guard added, She says her name is Brielle Sutton. Grayson didn't waste a second. He handed Savannah a steadying look, part apology, part promise, and strode toward the lobby with the security guard leading the way. Every step echoed with tension. Every breath was a warning. Savannah stayed frozen by Lily's bedside, her hands still trembling. The name Brielle Sutton tasted like metal in her mouth. Her pulse hammered. Her instincts screamed. But she couldn't leave Lily again. Not even for a nightmare like Brielle. In the lobby, Brielle stood at the center like she owned the building. Her tailored white coat, her hair in a perfect low bun, her arms crossed in that familiar posture that always meant destruction followed soon after. Even in a hospital, she carried herself like a woman stepping onto a stage. When her eyes landed on Grayson, her expression twisted into something between concern and calculation. Grayson! She breathed, rushing toward him. Thank God you're here. I came as soon as I heard. He stopped dead, jaw clenched. How did you hear, Brielle? She blinked innocently. Your company's emergency alert system flagged a pediatric trauma case linked to your volunteer unit. Then she tilted her head. And I was notified because, well, you made me the secondary emergency contact months ago. Grayson's stomach turned. He remembered signing dozens of documents during the merger last winter, Brielle hovering, pointing where to sign, insisting she'd handle the details. He hadn't realized she'd slipped that into the stack. You shouldn't be here, he said sharply. Lily is not your concern. Brielle pressed a manicured hand to her chest, feigning hurt. She's your concern, Grayson, and I care about anything that affects you. He didn't respond. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. I also know who her mother is. Savannah Blake. Her smile sharpened. And I know you're wondering what she's been hiding. His eyes narrowed. Don't. But it's true, Brielle whispered. Savannah disappeared for a reason, and you need to question what she kept from you. Grayson stepped back, a slow burn rising in his expression. I know exactly who's been hiding things from me, and it's not Savannah. Something flickered in Brielle's eyes, something small, dangerous, unmasked. But then she leaned in again, voice thin and sweet. Grayson, I came to warn you. About what? He said tightly. She hesitated just long enough for it to feel staged. Savannah isn't safe, and if you're not careful, neither is your company. Grayson's jaw tightened. You're talking in circles. No, Brielle said softly. I'm trying to protect you. There are people watching Savannah, people who know the truth about Lily. He froze. What truth? Brielle's smile widened in a way that made his skin crawl. Ask her, if she's brave enough to tell you. Before Grayson could respond, a nurse sprinted into the lobby. Mr. Holt! Ms. Blake is asking for you. Lily's condition has shifted again. Grayson turned instantly to run, but Brielle grabbed his wrist. Be careful, Grayson, she whispered, because Savannah is not who you think she is. He yanked his arm away and bolted down the hall. But when he reached the room, Savannah wasn't standing by the bed. She was collapsed on the floor, pale, clutching a crumpled paper in her fist. And the look on her face said whatever she had just read was worse than losing Lily. Savannah didn't hear Grayson enter the room. She didn't hear the nurses. She didn't hear the monitors. She only heard the faint echo of her own heartbeat pounding inside her skull, a slow, suffocating drum. Her fingers clenched the paper so tightly, the edges cut into her skin. Grayson dropped to his knees beside her. Savannah, hey, look at me. What happened? She didn't respond. He gently pried her hand open, lifting the paper she'd been gripping as if it were a death sentence. It wasn't a death sentence. It was worse. A hospital document, dated 2 years earlier. A pediatric health note from Lily's infancy. But it wasn't the content that made his blood run cold. It was the signature, signed Brielle Sutton, acting guardian. Grayson froze. Savannah, how did Brielle sign as guardian? You never gave her authority. Savannah shook her head, tears dripping onto the tile floor. I didn't. Grayson, I never signed anything like that. I would never give her access to my daughter. Then how? Savannah looked up at him, eyes hollow. She forged it. She forged everything. Her voice trembled harder. Don't you see? She's been in Lily's life without me knowing. She had access to her doctors, her records. She could change anything she wanted. Grayson felt sick. Savannah, why didn't you tell me she was interfering with your life? Savannah laughed, a broken, humorless sound. Tell you? Grayson, I couldn't even tell you I was pregnant. Brielle made sure of that. He blinked, stunned. What do you mean she made sure? Savannah closed her eyes, forcing the words through her shaking breath. The night I left, I wasn't planning to. I only left because Brielle showed up at the apartment while you were gone. She said you didn't want to see me. She said you were done. She handed me papers and said it was your decision. Grayson's entire body stiffened. Papers? Savannah nodded slowly. She said the documents were for temporary support. that you wanted me out because I wasn't stable. His face twisted in disbelief. She said if I stayed, you would take the baby from me the moment she was born. Grayson grabbed the wall for balance. Savannah's voice cracked. She scared me, Grayson. I didn't have family. I didn't have money. I had panic attacks every night. I didn't know who to trust, so I signed. I signed everything she put in front of me because I thought you hated me. His vision blurred with fury, not at Savannah, but at the monster who had weaponized her vulnerability. Savannah, he breathed, I never told her to do that. I never wanted you gone. Her eyes met his, shattered, searching. But you didn't come after me, she whispered. You didn't look for me. He flinched. She wasn't wrong. Before he could answer, the head nurse burst into the room, breathless. Mr. Holt, Ms. Blake, your daughter's lab reports just came back. They both stood instantly. The nurse swallowed hard. There's evidence of prior interference with her medications, and the pattern is deliberate. Savannah felt the room tilt. Are you saying, she whispered, someone hurt my daughter before tonight? The nurse hesitated, then nodded. Grayson's fists curled. Who had access? He demanded. The nurse lowered her voice. Only one unauthorized user appears in the logs. Grayson felt his heart stop. Who? He whispered. The nurse handed him a printed page. He stared at the name. Savannah's breath caught when she saw his reaction. Grayson, who is it? He lifted his eyes to hers, fury shaking his voice. It was Brielle. She's been targeting Lily for months. Savannah staggered back as if the words had physically struck her. Months. Brielle had been in Lily's records for months. Her chest tightened, each breath more painful than the last. Grayson reached out to steady her, but she shook her head and pressed her palms against her temples. No, I would have seen it, she whispered. I would have known. I checked her medicines. I kept notes. You weren't supposed to find it, Grayson said softly, fury trembling beneath his calm tone. Brielle's entire skill set is hiding sabotage behind routine noise. If she wanted to manipulate Lily's medical logs, she knew exactly how to do it without raising alarms. Savannah looked up at him, eyes filled with a mother's torment. But why Lily? What did my baby ever do to her? Grayson swallowed hard. Hurting Lily means hurting you, means hurting me, means controlling what I fear most. His voice cracked slightly. Brielle doesn't just take power, she destroys anything that threatens hers. Savannah covered her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. Guilt burned through her like acid. I should have protected her better. Grayson knelt in front of her. Savannah, listen to me. He waited until her eyes lifted to his. You protected her alone for 3 years, without money, without support, without anyone in your corner. What happened here is not your fault. Her lips trembled. But she was suffering, and I didn't see it. She hid it from you, he said sharply, and that ends tonight. Before Savannah could respond, the door opened and Oliver Hayes, the lawyer who'd been quietly observing from earlier, entered the room. He carried a folder thick with documents. I need to speak with both of you, Oliver said, lowering his voice. And you're not going to like what I found. Savannah stiffened. What now? Oliver laid the documents on the counter. These are subpoenaed copies of Holt BioCare's internal audit logs, unauthorized access, data manipulation, false guardian authorizations. He looked directly at Grayson. Every single trail leads back to Brielle. Savannah felt a wave of nausea. So she's been planning this for years? Oliver nodded grimly. It's bigger than tampering with Lily's records. She used Savannah's forged signature to approve a financial transfer 2 years ago. Savannah blinked. Transfer? What transfer? Oliver hesitated. A large block of Holt BioCare shares. Grayson went white. No, he whispered. Those shares were meant for... Savannah's eyes widened. For who? Oliver exhaled. For you, Savannah. Those shares were legally yours, but Brielle diverted them. Silence detonated across the room. Savannah shook her head violently. That's impossible. I never owned any part of Holt Biocare. Grayson's voice was barely audible. You did. My mother arranged it before she died. She wanted you protected. Savannah stared at him in shock as the truth unraveled like a cut thread. And Brielle stole it, Oliver said. If this goes public, she loses everything, which means she's getting desperate now. Unpredictable. Savannah's pulse pounded. Unpredictable how? What is she planning? Oliver's jaw tightened as he slid one last page across the counter. A threatening message, addressed to Savannah, sent from an encrypted device. Grayson lifted it, face turning to stone. Savannah whispered, What does it say? Grayson read aloud, voice shaking with rage. If Lily survives, you won't. Savannah's breath stopped. And at that exact moment, a hospital alert blared overhead, calling a code blue in Lily's room. The overhead alarm blared through the hallways, sharp, metallic, and paralyzing. Code blue, pediatric room 3, code blue. Savannah's scream tore from her chest before her mind even understood the words. She stumbled forward, legs barely working, fingers clutching the air as if she could rip the world open and get to her daughter faster. Grayson caught her arm just long enough to keep her from collapsing, then ran beside her, matching her desperate pace. They burst into Lily's room. Nurses surrounded the bed, moving with rapid precision. A doctor pumped a tiny oxygen bag. Another adjusted the IV line. The heart monitor spiked erratically, then dipped into a terrifying flatness before bouncing again. Savannah pressed a hand to her mouth, shaking so violently she could barely breathe. What happened? Grayson demanded, voice raw. A nurse answered without looking up. Her airway collapsed. We're trying to stabilize. Savannah felt the world tilt sideways. Oxygen drained from her lungs. She braced herself on the rail, her forehead almost touching Lily's blanket. Baby, stay with Mommy, she whispered. Please, stay. The doctor called out, Get epinephrine ready. Savannah's sob broke into the sterile air. Grayson moved behind her, placing both hands gently on her shoulders, anchoring her the only way he knew how. But something inside him was unraveling too, because the image of Lily, small, fragile, fighting for each breath, ignited a rage he had never felt in his life, a rage that had a name, Brielle. Oliver rushed into the room moments later, breathing hard. I called hospital security. They're sweeping the building. Savannah didn't look up. She shouldn't even be near here. She shouldn't be in our lives at all. Grayson tightened his jaw. She won't be, not after tonight. Suddenly, the heart monitor let out a long, piercing beep. Savannah screamed. The medical team surged into motion. Clear! A jolt shook Lily's body. Rhythm irregular. Prepare another. Clear? Savannah dropped to her knees, hands pressed together, eyes squeezed shut as if praying would hold her daughter to life. Come on, baby, she whispered. Come on. Then, a blip. Another. A steady line formed. The monitor found a rhythm. The doctor exhaled. She's back. She's with us. Savannah collapsed into Grayson's arms, trembling violently. He held her tight, burying his face in her hair, letting himself feel something he'd spent years denying. Relief so powerful it hurt. But then Oliver re-entered, face pale. We have another problem, he said quietly. Security checked the lobby cameras. Grayson straightened. And? She never left the building. Savannah's breath caught. What do you mean? Oliver showed them his phone, a paused image of a hallway camera feed. Brielle stood outside a restricted stairwell, staring directly into the lens, smiling. Grayson's blood ran cold. How did she get into that wing? That's for staff only. Oliver swallowed. She used a stolen badge. Savannah clutched the edge of the bed rail. She's still here? Why? Oliver hesitated. Because she wasn't trying to see you, he said. Or Grayson. Savannah's eyes widened, fear turning her skin to ice. Then who? Oliver answered in a low, shaken voice. She came back for Lily. Savannah's entire body went numb. The words, "she came back for Lily," echoed through her skull like a siren she couldn't escape. She grabbed the side of the bed for balance, her fingers slipping against the cool metal railing. "Why would she come back?" she whispered. "What else could she possibly want?" Grayson's expression hardened, his jaw locked, eyes storm-dark. Control. She's losing it, and people like Brielle don't go down quietly. Oliver moved to the doorway, scanning the hall. Security is searching every floor. But this building has too many blind spots. She knows that. Savannah hugged her arms across her chest, trembling, so she could be anywhere. Grayson turned to her, placing both hands gently on her shoulders. "She won't get near Lily. I'm not letting anything happen to her, not tonight, not ever." Savannah wanted to believe him. She wanted to lean into that promise, but fear had its claws deep in her chest. A nurse stepped in with a clipboard, voice trembling slightly. "We're moving Lily to a higher security unit. Only authorized staff can enter." Savannah shook her head urgently. No, she needs me close." "You'll still be near her," the nurse assured. "But for safety, only one guardian can stay inside the secured room." Savannah turned to Grayson, panic rising. "You go! You're stronger, if Brielle tries anything." Grayson shook his head. "No, you're her mother. She needs you. I'll guard the hallway." There was no time for debate. The medical team prepared Lily for transfer, carefully moving the monitors and IV lines. Savannah wiped her tears with the back of her hand and stood beside the gurney as they rolled Lily toward the elevator. But the elevator doors slid open to a deafening silence. The entire floor felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Oliver frowned. "Where's the guard assigned to this floor?" "He should be stationed right there," Grayson muttered, pointing to an empty post. "He wouldn't leave." Savannah's breath caught. "Where is he?" Before anyone could answer, a soft beep echoed from the nurse's pager, an alert for a restricted area breach. The elevators at the far end of the hall blinked from red to green. Unauthorized access. Grayson's instincts exploded. "She's on this floor." Savannah's pulse hammered. She looked down at Lily, so small on the gurney, barely held together by machines and fragile breaths. "We have to move now," Oliver urged, "before she gets closer." The group pushed the gurney toward the secured wing. Savannah stayed right beside Lily, whispering, "Mommy's here. I'm not leaving, baby." As they rounded the corner, the overhead lights flickered, once, twice, before stabilizing. Savannah felt a chill race down her spine. "Did the power just—" she began. A scream echoed from behind them. A man's scream, cut short. Oliver whipped around. That was the missing guard. Savannah's blood froze. Grayson turned slowly, muscles coiled, eyes narrowing at the dim corridor behind them. A shadow stepped into view. A woman's silhouette. Calm. Unhurried. And then Brielle Sutton emerged into the light, her stolen badge dangling from her fingertips, her eyes fixed not on Grayson, not on Oliver, but on Lily. Savannah instinctively threw her body over the gurney. Brielle smiled. "Time's up, Savannah." Savannah's breath lodged in her throat as Brielle stepped fully into the hallway, the dim lights casting sharp angles across her face. She looked disturbingly calm, hair neat, coat pristine, eyes cold enough to burn through steel, the kind of calm that only came from knowing she held an advantage. Grayson moved instantly, stepping between Brielle and the gurney. His stance was rigid, protective, almost feral. "You're not touching my daughter." Brielle raised an eyebrow, as if amused. "Your daughter? That's interesting, considering you spent years believing she didn't exist." Savannah flinched. The words were meant to wound, and they did. Oliver subtly shifted to block the other side of the gurney. "Security is on their way. This ends now, Brielle." She tilted her head. "Oh, Oliver, you're adorable. But if security were anywhere close, they'd be here already. You forget. I know this building better than anyone." Savannah's pulse hammered. What did you do to the guard? Brielle shrugged, unbothered. He's alive. Probably. He shouldn't have tried to stop me. Savannah's knees nearly buckled, but she tightened her grip on the metal railing, placing herself directly over Lily. Her body trembled, but she refused to move. You've done enough, Savannah whispered. Stay away from her. Brielle's eyes flicked to Savannah. Flat. Unreadable. You think I hurt Lily? Please. I've been protecting Holt Biocare, protecting Grayson, protecting everything he built. Grayson barked a harsh laugh. By forging documents? By sabotaging medical records? By terrorizing Savannah? Terrorizing? Brielle repeated, almost offended. I saved you, both of you. Do you have any idea what Savannah's instability could have done to your reputation, or to this company's stock value? Savannah recoiled, pain flaring across her expression. Instability? You created that lie. It wasn't a lie, Brielle said coldly. You were panicking, crying, shaking. I simply accelerated the truth. Grayson stepped closer, his voice deadly low. You stole Savannah's shares. You forged custody documents. You manipulated medical files. And now Lily almost died because of you. Brielle's smile faded. A thin crack in the armor. You weren't supposed to find out, she said softly. Oliver stiffened. Find out what? Brielle reached into her coat. Savannah gasped, pulling Lily closer. But Brielle didn't pull a weapon. She pulled out a small black tablet. Grayson's stomach dropped. What is that? Proof, Brielle whispered. Proof that Holt Biocare will collapse if I go down. Proof that you need me more than you realize. Oliver took a slow step forward. Set it on the floor. Now. But Brielle held it tighter. I walk out of this hospital, she said, or every single confidential file I've collected goes public. Shareholder documents, trial results, employee data, merger contracts, everything. You're bluffing, Grayson growled. She smiled faintly. Am I? The lights flickered again, longer this time. The hospital intercom crackled. Then, down the corridor, a heavy door slammed open with such force it echoed like a gunshot. Savannah jerked her head toward the sound. Grayson's eyes narrowed. Oliver reached instinctively for his phone. Because standing in the doorway, breathing hard, eyes blazing, was the one person no one expected to return. For a moment, no one moved. The air froze mid-breath as the figure in the doorway stepped forward, the fluorescent lights catching the badge clipped to his coat. Hospital administration. But it wasn't the badge that made Savannah gasp. It was his face. Dr. Marcus Hale, the former chief medical officer at Holt Biocare. The man who vanished right after Savannah gave birth. The man Brielle once claimed moved overseas for a better opportunity. The man who disappeared the same week Savannah received falsified mental health documents. Grayson's entire expression twisted with disbelief. Marcus, you're alive? Marcus let out a low, humorless laugh. Barely, thanks to Brielle. Savannah's breathing hitched. You knew her? You were part of this? Marcus held up his hands. Not willingly. She blackmailed me, years ago. She framed me for manipulating trial results. She forged my signature, same way she forged Savannah's. Brielle's eyes darkened. You should have stayed gone. Marcus ignored her, stepping closer. I didn't disappear, he said to Savannah. I was forced out. I knew too much. She threatened my license, my family. I had no choice but to go underground while I tried to gather evidence. Savannah felt the world tilt around her. Evidence of what? Marcus turned toward Brielle, voice trembling with contained fury. Of everything she's done. The forged Guardian documents, the falsified mental health reports, the sabotaged prenatal files, the financial theft, and, his voice cracked, the tampering with Lily's medical history. Savannah staggered back, grip tightening on the gurney until her knuckles went white. She hurt my daughter, on purpose. Marcus nodded slowly. Because she needed leverage. She needed Grayson emotionally fractured and professionally dependent on her. And Savannah, he looked at her with guilt flooding his eyes. Hurting you was always part of her plan. Brielle's mask slipped, just for a second, a flash of pure venom. You don't get to tell my story, she snapped. Grayson's voice whipped through the hall like a blade. It's over, Brielle. Marcus is a witness. Savannah has proof. Oliver has logs. You're done. Brielle looked at Grayson the way a cornered animal sizes up the closing trap. You think you can stop me? She whispered. Absolutely, he said. But she smiled, slowly, chillingly. Then you still underestimate me. Before anyone could react, she tapped the tablet in her hand. A shrill alarm blasted overhead. Red emergency lights began flashing through the corridor. Oliver's face drained of color. That's not a hospital alert. That's a server breach code. Marcus swore under his breath. She uploaded something. Brielle stepped backward toward the stairwell door. One file, she said. Just one. Enough to destroy this company, your reputation, and everything your mother built. Grayson lunged forward, but she scanned her stolen badge, slipping through the door. Savannah screamed, "Stop her!" Grayson shoved the door, but it locked instantly. A timed security seal triggered from Brielle's device. On the other side of the door, Brielle's voice echoed faintly. Catch me if you can, Grayson. The alarm blared louder. Marcus looked at the tablet's flashing screen. His expression went white. She didn't just breach the server, he whispered. She triggered a full system wipe. Holt Biocare has 10 minutes before everything is erased. The hallway erupted into chaos the moment Marcus finished speaking. Alarms wailed overhead, red lights pulsed like a frantic heartbeat, and a robotic voice repeated the warning in cold monotone. System breach detected. Data integrity compromised. 10 minutes to full wipe. Savannah clutched the railing of Lily's gurney, panic roaring inside her. What does that mean? What happens if the system wipes? Marcus turned to her, his face tight. It means every medical record, every research file, every internal document at Holt Biocare will be erased. Permanently, Oliver added. And every piece of evidence we've gathered against Brielle, gone. Savannah's stomach twisted. She's trying to destroy everything. Not trying, Marcus said grimly. She will, unless we stop her. Grayson ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling beneath the surface. The security seal on the stairwell. How do we break it? You can't, Marcus answered. It resets on a time lock. Oliver stepped forward. Then we find another access point. Service corridors, maintenance lifts, something Brielle overlooked. Grayson's eyes narrowed with renewed determination. Savannah, stay with Lily. Marcus and Oliver, come with me. Savannah grabbed his arm. Grayson, be careful. She's dangerous. He cupped her cheek briefly, a rare softness breaking through the urgency. I'm coming back, I promise. But promises felt fragile in a moment like this. As they ran down the hall, Savannah turned back to Lily, her tiny face pale, her breaths shallow, oblivious to the war unfolding around her. Savannah brushed a tear from her daughter's cheek. You're going to be okay, baby, she whispered. Mommy will protect you, no matter what. In the mechanical wing of the hospital, Grayson, Marcus, and Oliver forced open a maintenance door, exposing a narrow steel corridor humming with electrical lines. This leads behind the restricted access zone, Marcus said. If Brielle's still on this floor, she'll be heading toward the auxiliary server panel. Oliver checked his watch. 7 minutes left. They hurried through the corridor, their footsteps echoing sharply. Marcus hissed, She knows the wipe will cover her tracks. She's erasing her crimes, her forgeries, everything. Grayson clenched his fists. I won't let her destroy my company, or what's left of Savannah's life. When they emerged into the dim service hall, Grayson froze. A trail of bloody fingerprints smeared across the wall. Oliver's face went pale. That's the guard's blood. She dragged him this way. Marcus whispered, She's unhinged. Grayson's voice was low and lethal. She always was. They followed the streaks to a half-open electrical room door. Inside, wires dangled like exposed nerves, sparks popping from a fried panel. The smell of burnt insulation filled the air. And at the center of the room, the auxiliary server tower. Its screen flashed bright red. Wipe sequence initiated. 05.24 remaining. Oliver cursed under his breath. If she encrypted the manual override, we're done. Marcus stepped forward, hands shaking as he examined the panel. She didn't encrypt it. She destroyed it. Grayson scanned the room. Then where is she? A soft, deliberate voice emerged from the shadows behind them. You're late. They spun around. Brielle stepped forward, grease smeared on her palms, a small remote device dangling from her hand. Her smile was razor-sharp. 5 minutes, gentlemen, and then Holt Biocare, and all of you, disappear. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the rhythmic ticking of the server countdown. 4:58. Sior 57. Sior 56. Brielle stood beside the auxiliary tower like a queen guarding her ruined kingdom. Sparks crackled behind her, illuminating her face with erratic flashes. She looked unhinged and terrifyingly confident. Grayson stepped forward, fists clenched. Shut it down, Brielle, now. She smirked. Begging doesn't suit you, Grayson. You used to be so composed, so powerful. Oliver moved subtly to the left, trying to flank her. Brielle noticed instantly. Don't, she warned, lifting the remote device. One click, and not only does the wipe finish early, but I release every confidential file I ever collected. SEC violations, clinical data, internal conversations, including the ones about the merger that could tank your entire company. Marcus's breathing grew shallow. Brielle, you'll be prosecuted. You'll lose everything. I already lost everything, she snapped. You all took it from me. Grayson's voice was low, steady. No, you destroyed it yourself. Her eyes narrowed. Don't pretend you're innocent. You replaced me with her. Savannah's name stabbed the air like a weapon. Savannah had nothing to do with your downfall, Grayson said. You sabotaged her life. You targeted her daughter. That's on you. Brielle's laughter was sharp, brittle. She was weak, emotional. She didn't deserve you, and she sure as hell didn't deserve Holt Biocare. Grayson's jaw tightened. She deserved everything my mother wanted for her. For the first time, Brielle's expression faltered. Your mother made a mistake. No, Grayson said quietly. She saw who you were, long before I did. The countdown ticked lower. 03:40, 03:39. Oliver whispered to Marcus, We need a bypass, anything. Marcus shook his head. The panel's dead. Only the remote can stop it. Grayson took another step closer to Brielle. Hand it to me. She lifted the remote slightly. One more step and I'll finish the wipe. Don't test me. Grayson froze. Brielle's voice turned soft, eerie. You could have chosen me, Grayson. I was loyal. I protected the company. I protected your image. I made sure no one ever saw your flaws. Grayson's eyes darkened. You hid my flaws by destroying people. That's not loyalty. That's control. Her lips curved. Control is necessary to protect an empire. No, he said, voice breaking. Love protects. Loyalty protects. You never did. Her face twisted into fury. And she did? Savannah? That trembling little mess. She was never strong enough for your world. She was strong enough to survive it without me, Grayson said, and that makes her stronger than you'll ever be. Brielle's hand tightened on the remote. Then you can lose your empire with her. She raised her thumb, but suddenly, from behind the electrical racks, a metal pipe swung through the air with a sharp whistle. It struck Brielle's wrist. The remote clattered to the floor. She screamed. Grayson spun toward the source. Marcus stood trembling, pipe in hand, chest heaving. I'm done being afraid of you, he whispered. The countdown blinked. 02:11 remaining. Brielle lunged for the remote, and someone else burst into the room, shouting Grayson's name. The door slammed open so hard it ricocheted off the wall, and Savannah stumbled into the room, breathless, eyes wild with fear. "Grayson!" she cried, voice cracking. "Security said Brielle disabled the cameras on this floor. Lily's monitors just glitched again. I thought—" She froze at the sight before her. Sparks flying from ruptured panels, countdown flashing red, Marcus shaking with a metal pipe in his hand, Brielle clutching her injured wrist, the remote lying dangerously close to her boot, and Grayson standing between everything and everyone, breath heavy, muscles taut. Savannah whispered, "Dear God." Brielle's gaze snapped toward her, sharp, venomous, hungry. "Well," she hissed, "if it isn't the root of all this." Savannah instinctively stepped closer to Grayson, her heartbeat hammering so loudly she could barely hear anything else. But she didn't back down. Not now. Not after everything Brielle had taken from her. Oliver saw the danger immediately. "Savannah, stay behind us." "No," Savannah whispered, eyes locked on Brielle. "She's been doing this to me for years. I'm done hiding." Brielle laughed softly. "Hiding? Sweetheart, you were never hidden. You were erased." Savannah felt her breath hitch. Marcus's voice hardened. "Brielle, it's over. Give up." "Over?" Brielle spat. "Nothing is over until I say it is." Then she lunged for the remote. Grayson dove forward, but Savannah was closer, fueled by something deeper than fear, something primal and fierce. She kicked the remote across the floor, sending it skidding under a metal cabinet. Brielle shrieked, clutching her wrist as pain shot up her arm. "You little—" Savannah's voice thundered across the room. "You tried to kill my daughter!" The accusation cracked something inside Brielle. She stepped forward, unhinged. "She was leverage!" Brielle screamed. "You were supposed to disappear, Savannah. You were supposed to break. But you just kept breathing. You kept fighting. You wouldn't stay erased." Grayson lunged toward her. "Don't you come near her!" But Brielle reached for a dangling wire instead and ripped it free, sparks flying dangerously close to the power core. Marcus shouted, "Stop! That surge could accelerate the wipe." The countdown jumped. EO1 42, EO1 41. Panic surged through the room. Oliver frantically dropped to his knees, reaching under the metal cabinet for the remote. "I can't reach it!" Savannah dropped beside him. "Let me try. My hands are smaller." Her fingers brushed the cold plastic, just as a boot struck the cabinet hard. Savannah jerked back. Brielle stood over them, breathing hard, face twisted with rage. "No one touches that remote but me." Grayson stepped forward, fury in every line of his body. "You're finished, Brielle. Let go." But she didn't flee this time. She didn't threaten. She smiled, a slow, terrifying smile. "You still don't get it, do you?" she whispered. "None of you walk out of this room with your future intact." Savannah grabbed Grayson's hand, voice shaking. "What does she mean?" Oliver's eyes widened as he stared at the sparking power core. "Oh, God," he breathed. "She didn't just trigger a data wipe." Savannah's heart stopped. "What did she do?" she whispered. Oliver swallowed hard. "She rigged the server to overload. This room is going to explode." For a split second, no one breathed. The server tower hissed like a living creature, sparks spitting from its core as a low, ominous hum built beneath the metal floor. The air thickened with heat. Every survival instinct in the room ignited at once. Savannah grabbed Grayson's arm. "We have to get out! We have to go! Now!" Oliver's voice was tight. "If this server overloads, the shockwave could take out half this floor." Marcus backed toward the door. "We need to evacuate. Grab the remote later." But Brielle lifted her head, a chilling smile forming. "Run, then. Let my final victory burn into this building." Grayson stepped in front of Savannah protectively. "This doesn't end with you winning." The countdown blinked violently. 058, 057, 056. Savannah's heart pounded in her ears. "Grayson, we can't fight her! Lily needs us alive!" Her voice cracked, tears streaking down her cheeks. It was those tears that broke something inside him. He turned toward the heating tower, his mother's legacy, Savannah's stolen inheritance, and Brielle's weapon. "No," Grayson said. "I won't let her take anything else from you." Before anyone could stop him, he lunged for the sparking panel and ripped open the casing. The heat seared his skin instantly. "Grayson!" Savannah screamed. Marcus shouted, "You can't stop an overload with your hands!" "I'm not stopping it!" Grayson growled through clenched teeth. "I'm buying you time!" Another spark exploded, throwing him back, but he pushed himself up again. Savannah sobbed, "Please, stop! She's not worth your life!" His voice softened even through the chaos. "But you are!" Heat began to warp the metal cabinet. The room filled with burning plastic and smoke. Oliver cursed and dove to the ground again. "The remote! If we can activate a manual shutdown, it might delay the surge." Savannah dropped beside him, reaching under the cabinet once more. Her hands scraped metal, her arms shaking as the floor vibrated. "I feel it!" she cried. "I'm touching something!" Another shockwave rippled through the room. Brielle stumbled, but regained her footing. "It's too late! You're all too late!" She bolted toward the exit. Marcus tried to block her, but Brielle shoved him aside, sprinting into the corridor. Oliver yelled, "Forget her! We have 30 seconds!" Savannah finally wrapped her fingers around the remote and pulled it free, gasping. "I got it!" Grayson stumbled back to her, coughing, one side of his shirt burned. "Press the override," he rasped. Savannah's thumb hovered over the button. The countdown flashed. 0022. 0021. She slammed her thumb down. Nothing happened. Savannah's voice broke. "It's not working." "It needs authorization," Oliver said. "Someone with original system clearance." Marcus shook his head. "Brielle wiped mine." Grayson looked at Savannah. Pain, love, desperation, all mixing in his eyes. "My mother registered one other person," he said. "Someone she trusted." Savannah blinked. "Who?" "You." Her breath stopped. "Try your signature code," he urged. "Now!" Savannah fumbled with the screen, typing the only code she remembered from years ago. Something Grayson's mother whispered to her once, as she pressed a necklace into her hand. The server screeched. The lights flickered. "Grozo 7! Grozo 6! Borrow 5!" The remote beeped. A green light blinked. The overload halted. Smoke thinned. Silence swallowed the room. Then Oliver whispered, "Where's Brielle?" And from the hallway came a chilling sound, the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. Savannah froze at the sound. That cold metallic click echoed down the hallway like the ticking of a trap sealing shut. She clutched the remote instinctively, her pulse pounding so violently she could barely breathe. Grayson stepped in front of her without hesitation, his burned arm trembling, but steady enough to shield her. Oliver and Marcus flanked him, forming a human barrier between Savannah and whatever waited beyond the door. Then Brielle stepped into view. Her hair, once perfectly sleek, now hung in disarray. Her coat was torn, her wrist swollen from the earlier blow, but her eyes, sharp, feverish, unhinged, burned with a manic clarity that made Savannah's stomach knot. In her hand, a gun. A small, black, polished weapon she held with chilling confidence. "Don't move," Brielle ordered. Everyone froze. Savannah's breath hitched as the barrel shifted toward her. Her fingers dug into the remote until plastic cracked under her grip. Grayson stepped forward, voice low, controlled. "Put the gun down, Brielle." "No." Her voice wavered, not with fear, but with fury. "You ruined everything, all of you." Oliver raised his hands slowly. "Let's talk this out." "Oh, spare me the lawyer routine," Brielle snapped. "You think I don't know how this ends for me? Prison? Headlines? My name dragged through the mud?" Marcus swallowed hard. "It doesn't have to end that way." Brielle's laugh was sharp, brittle. "Of course it does, because Savannah couldn't just disappear like she was supposed to." Savannah flinched. "You were nobody," Brielle continued, her voice shaking. "A scared girl with panic attacks, clinging to a man far too powerful for you." I did you a favor sending you away." Savannah found her voice, quiet but firm. "You destroyed my life." "No," Brielle said, lifting the gun higher. "You destroyed mine!" Grayson stepped forward slightly, shielding Savannah even more. "Brielle, listen to me. Whatever you think you're fixing, whatever revenge you think this is, it ends now. Put the gun down." Her eyes softened, but only for a heartbeat. "I loved you, Grayson." He didn't blink. "Then you shouldn't have tried to hurt my daughter." The words struck her like a blow. Her jaw tightened. Lily wasn't supposed to get hurt. She was leverage, a warning. But accidents happen when people don't follow orders. Savannah's knees buckled. Marcus reached out to steady her. Brielle shifted her aim instantly. "Don't touch her." The gun now pointed directly at Savannah's chest. Grayson's voice broke. "Brielle, stop." "You want her alive?" Brielle whispered. "Then you give me what I'm owed, publicly. You say I built Holt Biocare. You say Savannah lied. You restore my shares, or—" Her finger tightened on the trigger. Savannah felt her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. "Or I take back everything you stole from me," Brielle finished. Oliver whispered urgently, "Don't provoke her. She's unstable." But Grayson stepped forward anyway, slow, deliberate. "Point the gun at me," he said quietly. "Not her." Brielle blinked. "What?" "Take your revenge on me," he said. "I'm the one who ended your control. I'm the one you want. Leave Savannah out of this." Brielle's grip faltered. Savannah's breath hitched. And then, somewhere down the hall, a door burst open. Security. Their footsteps thundered toward them. Brielle whipped her head around, then swung the gun back at Savannah, her eyes blazing, her finger pressing the trigger. And Savannah realized she had less than 1 second to move. Time fractured. 1 second stretched into something unrecognizable as Brielle's finger tightened on the trigger. Savannah's instincts screamed at her to move, but her legs refused to obey. Her world narrowed to the black circle of the gun barrel, aimed straight at her heart. Then, a body slammed into her from the side. Not forceful enough to hurt her, but enough to knock her out of the bullet's path. The gun fired. The shot exploded. A flash of light tore through the room. Savannah hit the ground with a choked gasp. Her ears rang violently. She blinked, disoriented, her palms scraping the cold tile floor. Then she heard it. A sound she had never heard from him before. Grayson's pained exhale. She whipped around. Grayson was on one knee, hand clutched against his side. Blood seeping through his fingers. "Grayson!" Savannah screamed, scrambling toward him. He tried to smile, but the grimace twisted his features. "Told you! I'd take the hit for you!" Savannah's heart shattered. "No, no, no! You should have let me move! You shouldn't have—" "I wasn't letting her touch you," he breathed, voice thin. "Not ever again." Brielle stared at Grayson in disbelief, the gun trembling in her grip. You took the bullet for her?" Her voice cracked like a snapped string. Grayson forced himself upright, leaning heavily against the wall. "Because she's worth dying for." Something inside Brielle snapped. Her eyes widened, then dimmed into something hollow and deranged. "You were supposed to choose me," she whispered. "Not her. Never her." Savannah moved in front of Grayson protectively this time, her shaking frame blocking Brielle's view. "You're done, Brielle. This ends now." "No," Brielle hissed. "It ends when I say it ends." She raised the gun again, her hand trembling uncontrollably now. Marcus stepped forward, desperate. "Brielle, put it down. You'll only make this worse." "Silence!" she screamed, swinging the gun toward him. But that moment of fury cost her. Security stormed into the hallway, boots pounding, weapons drawn. "Drop the gun!" the lead officer shouted. "Drop it now!" Brielle stood frozen between two choices, neither offering escape. Savannah held Grayson's hand, feeling it grow colder by the second. Panic climbed her throat. "Please hold on, please!" Grayson's voice was faint. "Savannah, if something happens to me, don't you dare say that." She pressed her forehead to his. "You're staying alive. For Lily. For us." The officers advanced. Brielle's shoulders trembled. Her eyes darted wildly between them, then to the corridor behind her, as if calculating one last escape route. But there was none. Still, she refused to surrender. Instead, she did something no one expected. She turned the gun on herself. Gasps filled the hall. "No!" Savannah cried out instinctively. But Brielle didn't pull the trigger. She smiled, cold, broken, triumphant. "Check the second remote," she whispered. Oliver stiffened. "What second remote?" Brielle's smile widened. "The one that controls Lily's ventilator." Savannah's blood ran ice cold. "What did you do?" she demanded, voice shaking violently. Brielle leaned closer, whispering like a ghost. "If I die, she dies too." Savannah felt the floor tilt beneath her, as if her body could no longer separate terror from reality. Her throat closed, her vision tunneled, and her legs nearly gave out under her. Lily's ventilator, remote control, and Brielle holding everyone hostage with one final invisible threat. Grayson tried to stand, but pain tore through him, forcing him back to his knees. Savannah immediately supported him, holding his blood-slicked side with trembling hands. Oliver stepped forward carefully, voice steady. "Brielle, what exactly did you do to the ventilator?" She tilted her head, smiling with sickening satisfaction. "I built a manual override into the system months ago. Insurance, in case I needed leverage." She pointed the gun toward her chest again. "If my heart stops, hers stops." Savannah let out a strangled sound. "Why? Why would you tie a child's life to your own?" "Because Grayson needed to understand," Brielle hissed. "He needed to feel what I felt when he threw me away." Grayson forced out a weak growl. "I never loved you, Brielle, not once." Her eyes flashed with fury and heartbreak all twisted together. "No, you just used me, my brilliance, my loyalty, my life's work. And when someone softer came along, someone weaker, you abandoned me." Savannah shook her head through tears. "I didn't replace you, I just loved him." "Wrong!" Brielle screamed. "You ruined him!" Security tightened their circle, but none dared fire. One wrong shot, one startled twitch, and Lily's life could flicker out instantly. Oliver whispered urgently to Marcus, "We need the secondary override code. Does it exist?" Marcus shook his head. "It was decommissioned years ago. The only person with authority to restore it is—" His voice trailed off. They all knew the answer. Grayson's mother. The woman who died years before. The woman who left Savannah ownership papers she never knew existed. Savannah's breath hitched. "Is there a master key, a legacy override?" Marcus hesitated. "Yes, in theory, but it requires the system recognizing the heir." Savannah blinked. "The heir?" Marcus nodded slowly. "The rightful co-owner of Holt Biocare." Grayson's eyes found hers, painful, proud, pleading. "Savannah, that's you." Her heart lurched. "But I didn't even know—" "Mom registered you," Grayson whispered. "She trusted you." Brielle stepped back, panic flashing across her face. No, she's not authorized. That file was deleted." Marcus swallowed hard. Not if it was hard-coded. Hope flickered like a dying spark. Savannah gently lowered Grayson to the wall and rose to her feet. Her legs trembled, but something inside her, something fierce and maternal, ignited like fire. "Show me the terminal," she said. Oliver hesitated. "If the system rejects you—" "It won't," Grayson breathed. "My mother would never let Brielle win." Savannah moved toward the auxiliary panel, stepping carefully, her hands shaking but determined. She knelt beside the emergency control pad mounted beside the server tower. Its screen flickered with a final warning. "Remote lifelink active. Override restricted." Brielle lifted the gun, frantic now. "Step away from that!" Savannah didn't. She placed her trembling fingertips on the biometric pad. The system scanned. Processing. Processing. The room held its breath. Then, a soft chime echoed. "Authorized legacy user, Savannah Holt." Brielle's scream tore through the hallway. And in that moment, she pulled the trigger. The gunshot cracked through the hallway like lightning splitting the sky. Savannah flinched, eyes squeezed shut, breath suspended, waiting for pain that never came. A heavy thud hit the floor instead. When she opened her eyes, Brielle was on her knees, the gun skidding across the tile, kicked out of reach by a security officer. Her arm hung limp. Security had fired first, disarming her with a precise shot to the shoulder. Brielle's scream echoed down the corridor as officers pinned her to the ground. Savannah collapsed to her hands, shaking not from fear now, but from the overwhelming relief pulsing through every nerve. Grayson struggled to stand. "Savannah, are you hurt?" She rushed to him, dropping beside him, pressing her forehead to his. "No, you saved me, again." He gave a weak smile. "Good, I was aiming for that." Security lifted Brielle, handcuffing her as she thrashed uselessly. Her voice, once commanding and sharp, now cracked with fury and desperation. "You think you've won? Savannah isn't strong enough to lead anything. Holt BioCare will fall." Savannah rose slowly, turning toward her. "No," she said, voice steady, no tremor left. "It will rise. Without you." Officers dragged Brielle down the hallway, her screams fading into nothing. For the first time in years, the air felt breathable again. Oliver hurried over as medical staff rushed into the scene. "Savannah, you did it. The override went through. Lily's ventilator is safe." Savannah let out a sob that was half laughter, half prayer. "Take me to her." They moved to Lily's room. Grayson leaned heavily on her, but refused a stretcher. "I'm walking," he grumbled. "You're stubborn," she whispered. "You married me for it," he said softly. She froze. He swallowed. "I'm not losing my chance to say that again." When they stepped into Lily's hospital room, the monitors beeped with a stable rhythm. Soft, gentle, miraculous. Savannah hovered over her daughter, brushing a curl from her forehead. "She's safe," the nurse confirmed. "She's going to recover." Savannah broke. Tears poured freely as she kissed Lily's small hand. "You're so strong, baby. Stronger than all of us." Grayson's voice wavered, just like her mother. Savannah turned, meeting his gaze. "You almost died for us." "I'd do it again," he said simply. She touched his cheek, gently, tenderly. "No. From now on, we live for each other. Not die for each other." He closed his eyes at her touch, a tear slipping free. "Savannah, I love you," he whispered. "I never stopped. Let me earn you back. Let me be the father Lily deserves. Let me be the man you deserved all along." Her heart finally stopped running. She nodded, voice trembling. "Then come home with us, as a family." His breath caught. "Is that a yes?" "It's a beginning," she said softly. "But yes, Grayson Holt. It's a yes." He pulled her into his arms, careful of his injury, holding her as if the world had finally returned to its right place. Oliver stepped out quietly, giving them space. And in the warm hush of the room, as morning light slipped through the blinds, Savannah whispered to Lily, "We're safe now, baby. Your family is whole." And for the first time in years, it was true. Well, that's it, my dear friends. Our story has finally come to an end. And if you're still here, right now, listening to my voice or reading these last lines, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a way you didn't expect. Maybe a moment of courage, maybe a moment of pain, maybe the reminder that even the most broken people can rise again. You know, the Stoics said, the obstacle is the way. And Savannah's story shows exactly that. Sometimes the very thing meant to destroy us becomes the reason we discover our strength. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." A simple sentence. Yet it explains why truth, loyalty, and love always outlast manipulation and cruelty. So let this story be a small reminder. Healing is possible, justice is real, and your heart, even bruised, still deserves good things. If this touched you, even a little, stay with us. Like, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these stories together. You matter here, and I'm grateful you stayed until the end.